Lee, thank you for your question, and thank you for sharing something that I think so many of us resonate with, the experience of trying to ground yourself in the present, but really finding yourself revisiting interactions that you've had in the past and trying to see, am I right? Did I do a good enough job? So, this is a really common experience, and as painful as it can be to see ourselves doing this and to see how exhausting it is, as you mentioned, that's actually really beautiful because that's a prerequisite for us making a shift. So, congratulations on that first difficult step of having the awareness. Where I would go with this now, the first thing is to just really keep returning to this simple but really profound practice of returning to the most direct experience that you can. The story and the ego self, which tells the story, the ego and the story, they grow out of your direct experience. So they have a reality based in your direct experience, but they're not as real as the ground of your experience, which is something more like a feeling. It's an experience. The story isn't. It's a little removed from that. And so, whatever your direct experience is, see if you can just start to really get in touch with that. And maybe it helps to name it, right? I feel confusion. I feel, whether I'm right or wrong. That's a pretty direct experience. I feel a craving to be right. What does that craving feel like? I feel an unsettledness because I'm not sure. And so get down to the most direct that you can. Start with that. In meditation, of course, that's a kind of technique. We'll be returning to sensations or returning to the breath or something happening in real time in the now. Out in the world, there are times when you do need to sit and contemplate, and you do need to check in about the stories that you're telling yourself and that others are telling you. And we do need to make decisions and have discussions. And in those cases, I would actually ask you to see if you can explore the same technique, but in interaction, in relationship. And so, what does that look like? I think that looks like asking oneself, what's really, really, really true for me. So I could say, he was a real asshole in that interaction, obviously, right? Everyone can see, right? He was a real asshole. Or I could try to get more direct and say, I felt disrespected. And the reality of that, of I felt this way, right? Or I feel this way, versus the story of that person screwed everything up and made me have an experience. It's more direct. And insofar as you can, in a way that doesn't feel condescending to that person or whatever, can you tactfully, skillfully, lovingly bring somebody back to their own direct experience when they're projecting their story onto you? And it's not that these stories and these ego personas don't have some reality, but the further that the more engrossed we get in the stories and the further we get away from the foundation, the more disturbed we get and the more unharmonious and the more we find, oh my gosh, I'm living in like a different reality than this other person. We're not living in the same story. We're not grounded in the same place. The last thing that I'm going to suggest or offer is an inquiry practice for yourself around the question of why you crave to be right. Or maybe you want to articulate it a different way when you really get down to it. Maybe it's a craving for clarity. But there's some deep need. There's a desire to have a direct experience of peace, wellness, integrity or coherence? I don't know. But explore that for you. What do you really want? When the mind is going off trying to confirm that Lee is right or perfect Lee so she'll be right next time, why is it doing that? What's the deeper need?